Before we get started with today's show, a quick note at the top from me. We weren't sure if our special guest, Blue Sapphire, was going to be able to join us at the beginning of the recording due to timing of the recording, so we didn't introduce at the top of the show that he will be joining us, but halfway through he will jump in, and we're going to be talking a lot about speedruns. At the beginning, you'll hear us introduce in just a few moments that today's episode is about PvE, but really it's going to be the main topic, so it's going to be a lot about speedruns. So without anything else, I'll just let it get started, and you can know to look forward to that. Hello and welcome to episode 11 of TemTalk, your weekly podcast dedicated to the creature collection MMO Temtem. Today our main topic is going to be some tips and PvE information per a community request. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Pres B. Kennedy. Kennedy, how are you doing on this wonderful Mother's Day morning?
I am doing fan-flippin-tastic. I've got a very slight headache, but that's only because I woke up at like 6 a.m. this morning.
Oh,
and I started free-timming out of boredom.
Do you drink coffee? Are you a coffee person?
I am not,
Well,
but I've been just staring at my computer for like so long.
You need some caffeine in you. That's how you fight that.
Well, actually, it's funny that you say that. I just took an Excedrin migraine, and one of the things is they have caffeine inside the pills. And
there you go.
It's going to be gone in moments.
Good. That and a little dose of TemTalk will take good care of you. If you're listening to this on Sunday when the episode comes out, call your mother if you haven't already. Otherwise, if you're listening to it during the week, it's not too late if you forgot. With that said, let's jump straight into the news this week. Unfortunately, it's kind of a light news week, but that's okay. We're going to still talk about what's out there. The biggest reveal of content coming is new music. On the Temtem Twitter, they posted a link saying Damien coming in with some awesome new music. Damien Sanchez. I assume that's someone that works. Must be one of their developers. I can only imagine. I'm not familiar, but I assume
Damien Sanchez is the contractor, the musician they do 90% of the in-game sounds and music from.
How did you know that? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, I made a post forever ago on Temtem, or rather the Temtem subreddit, of asking what artistic choices people like and enjoy about Temtem that somebody at Crema is responsible for making a conscious decision of, and not like, oh, this is just what our system and funding allows.
Yeah.
And a lot of people started posting about Damien, the sound designer, and like how good his compositions were. And so I just like did a little Google searching like 2 weeks ago. I was like, this guy is hot fire.
Oh, nice.
So, and I love the in-game music. Like, it's
the in-game music, it fits the world, and I think and the feel and the warm fun of the game very well. So if you're interested, you can check out their Twitter and you can listen to it. It's some nice percussion and music, so you can get a little peek of what some changes are they're making to the music. So I'm excited to know that they're working on that full quality content. You know, we always talk about how Temtem's nice for being a holistic game where they take care of all of the details of animations, music, sound, and balance of the actual Temtems and new Temtems, which I think makes it a nice game. This week's weekly Park was a Luma week, so people can rejoice. It was 3-time Luma rates on Yumishi, or who evolves into Ukama, and for Fomu as well. And the weekly reset for free Temtem was again a tiered approach with 4 tiers ranging from 60 releases up to 650 releases. I don't understand why, but the 60 release was 2 side cards, which is basically like 30 Panson rewards, almost nothing, but okay. And then you got some fruits again, of course, and then another Telemore hack and another cosmetic at the very top, a striped backpack. So I definitely think this is the pattern we're going to see. Some cheap items, some fruit, Telemore hack, and then a cosmetic. I think it's been that in it for a couple weeks in a row, so we can settle in to be expecting this. We'll talk about a little bit more, but I think you said you spent a little bit of time trying to get Luma Fomu. Is that correct?
I don't want to talk about it.
I'm kidding. You have like 10 hours left to maybe still meet your dream.
Yeah, and we can talk about it when we talk about what we've been up to this
Sure.
week. But yes, I did get tricked into side parking this week. They got me with the 3x Luma
Tricked is the
rates.
right word. Yeah. So the other little bit of news we had is the community manager in Discord posted. What was the first part of it? I see that you shared with me the reply,
The,
but what word did she put at first?
the community manager posted weird comment Kiwiwa Uwa with the Uwa face.
Sure. Yep.
And nobody really knew what they meant or what was going on. And so when pressured about it more, they responded with another comment that says, it means you're going to meet the third evolutions of your beloved starters in Kissawa.
Yeah. So,
And
on
we're not sure if they were joking or not,
I
but
don't think I don't think it's a joke. I think there's no reason to joke about it. So I think it's a pretty safe assumption. And based on like the pacing of the evolutions and all of that, I think it makes sense. So we'll get level caps increased high enough that we can evolve our starters to the third form. I mean, it's not 100% certain, but I think it's a pretty clear clarification from them on that note. So that's exciting, right? We can finally see I'm excited to see what the art is for all three of them, the design more than anything.
I am too. I want to see Smazzy's evolution. I feel so bad that no other Tim has Fever Rush as an ability, and I think Fever Rush is such a cool, unique ability that whatever its final evolution has to be cool. Has to be cool.
Moving along from our news, our highlights from the community this week, we're talking about some tournament. You have some good info and coverage for us. You're going to run people through. You've got some nice overview in our notes here. I think you can kind of talk about what you will with. The only thing I'd say is I don't think we necessarily need to go through every single rank match pair and let people know who won, but at least talk about on a high level the play, the clubs, and maybe some of the key players at the moment. So I'll let you go ahead and run with it.
All right. So it was a very interesting week for the community. One thing that happened this week, a new tournament format is being tested around and thrown around the community. And it is a banning of the Fantastic Four. And what that is a tournament where nobody is allowed to bring Kinu, nobody's allowed to bring Pigapek, nobody's allowed to bring Gaialis, and nobody's allowed to bring Volarin on any of their teams, which when you ban out, the four top tier Tims, you get all of these very weird and interesting team comps of just a wider variety of Tims showing up. And matches go a little bit quicker. There were 3 tournaments ran this week with that format. Neko Blocky, I never know if it's Nico Blacky
Before you go further, I just want to say that I love that the community solution and innovation to, we kind of talked about whether the meta was stale or not stale and if there's enough Tems. But I love that they're like, okay, yeah, we know that we see these Tems in almost every match. How can we shake things up, make things more fun, more interesting, make more creative teams? And by just taking out these top tier Tems you see all the time, you might be bored seeing. I think it's a really good way to manage and be able to have fun in the competitive scene right now while we wait for content, which is definitely something we need. So I got to really give a big thumbs up and props to this idea and the execution of it.
Yeah, and I go back and forth on this where I feel like it definitely is new and it's definitely fresh. And just because people aren't used to it, it's a whole new tier of Tim battling. And with it, a meta is eventually going to evolve around it. But while it's fresh and new, nobody really knows what's the best and what's good and what's not good. And so I will admit this first week, the teams we saw were crazy. The games were awesome. It was so much fun to cast some of these tournaments and watch some of these tournaments. I have feelings about if this becomes like a regular in the Temtem meta of, we'll see new Tims occupy those spots for Kinu, Pigapet, Gaialis, and Volarin. But as of this week, Neko ran a tournament, Plus OP ran a tournament, and Temporium ran a tournament, all with the Fantastic Four banned out. And I will admit, all of the matches were fantastic to watch. Definitely go to all of their channels and look at the past broadcasts and just enjoy that format. Some of the craziest, wildest plays I've got to cast as a caster.
So
moving from there,
you said you had mixed feelings on it, though. That sounded all positive. What's the not so positive part? Why do you say it's mixed, your opinion of it, then?
Well, so one of the things is the Fantastic Four, banning out them Kinu gets banned out in that list. And I think Kinu is a very interesting Tim, as far as I don't necessarily think Kinu's overpowered, but where Kinu's S tier comes in and is what it enables as a support. So running Kinu isn't necessarily a problem because there's so many things that always deal with Kinu. There's always a sharp stabs or a crystal bite on deck to handle Kinu, or a crystal spikes. Psypad is virtually on every other team, which runs Toxic Ink. Whenever there isn't a anaerobic.
Basically, in short, you don't necessarily think that Kinu needed to be included in this.
Well,
you're sad to see the lack of Kinu then.
Well, it's a little bit more comprehensive than that, because I feel like Kinu actually enables a lot of lower tier and unviable Tims and covering their defenses and allowing them to get out onto the field, and then you can add even more variety and strategy to your team. And in some ways, I think Pigapet can do that too. And the issue that I feel with just simply banning out these Tims is it doesn't really encourage cool new team building, because people are still trying to figure out ways around working without these Tims and getting those slots occupied for their turbo choreography users and things like that. And I think I don't know what the holistic answer is, and I don't think we've found it yet, but simply banning out 4 Tims, I don't think that's going to solve it. I would wonder if addressing the move sets of these Tims would be something that's more advantageous.
Yeah, I think it's not a perfect solution, and long term, more Tims and more balancing would help it, but I think it's a great the short term,
a great
for the community,
step, yes.
Just being like, hey, we're gonna have fun this weekend. You're not gonna see what you've seen the last few weekends. You're not gonna see these 4 Tims. You're only gonna see different Tims. I think it's great at that. Just saying, okay, we don't want you guys to be bored seeing the same 4 Tims every single match. So let's just not have these in the matches. I do agree. Out of these 4, I would miss Kinu the most. Like Pig Epic, I like Pig Up. I like using Pig Epic. Pig Epic's good, but it is can be a little boring from a spectator side to just see Bamboozles constantly play around Bamboozle. But it's part of the high level chess match. So I get, removing it completely from the toolkits isn't always the best case. But for a weekend set of tournaments, why not? Sure, get rid of these 4 and let's see some other Tims.
Yeah, definitely. So, but I will say, I've had my hesitations going into each of these tournaments, and I watched all 3, and oh my God, so much fun. So any criticism I have, I'll wait till, a couple more of them happen and we have a more comprehensive view of it. Moving from there, Club Wars happened again this week, and I told myself, I messaged Andrew in the middle of the week, I was just like, last week I floundered on delivering news about Club Wars, and because I just paid attention to it I didn't pay attention to it, I just had it on in the background. This week I watched all of Divine Dojo versus Enigma. I was intent on each match, and Divine Dojo was undefeated and Enigma was undefeated so far in all of the Club War matchups. So these were the 2 undefeated clubs going against each other, and boy, did they put on a show. The first couple matches, Enigma just wiped the floor with Divine Dojo, and I was like, oh, Enigma's got this in the bag, because both Andrew and I are Enigma's
that's right. I'm sad to hear they didn't win overall.
Yeah, and then Divine Dojo brought it back to bringing the set to 3-3, and then Divine Dojo inched ahead, bringing it to 5-3. Then Enigma got back in it, bringing it to 4-4, and the first team to 5 wins it, and down to that last match. It really came down to the wire, down to the last 2 turns of the final match. And unfortunately, there were a couple things throughout the matchup that didn't go our way, and some questionable decisions. But all in all, Divine's Dojo had a terrific showing and won this week 5-4.
Oh,
So
it's good
that,
for congratulations to them. Well deserved.
yeah, there was a moment, and I have this like in the notes. There was a moment in one of the matches. It was Alvar versus Tsubaki-chan, and Alvar had the option to pick up Mushuk, and Mushuk countered literally all three of Tsubaki-chan's last choices. Not hard countered, but Mushuk did 2x damage to all three of the like last choices
Sure. Yep.
that Tsubaki-chan had. And there was the option to run a, you know, a for show style points Saku pick, where Saku wasn't exactly unsafe, but it wasn't the best pick there. And Alvar picked Saku over Mashuk, and I was like, no, what are you doing? And it came down to the last round, or the last turn of that combat, and Saku was not defensive enough to take the final match, or take the final round, and just ended up losing the war of attrition, and Tsubaki-chan won that match. And I was just like, Mushuk, what is that? And then who knows how that that set would have gone. But it was so much fun to watch.
Very nice. Oh, that's cool.
All of that said, to say that these matches aren't exactly broadcasted anywhere currently. If you want to watch them, you have to know who's playing and spectate them in game, or follow, you know, the Divine Dojo's Discord channel, and you know, try and find like the schedule. Fortunately, though, the people who run this, which I believe is Divine's Dojo, are partnering up with Temporium.
Illuminati conspiracy theory. The dojo that organized this also won it. Is that a coincidence?
Yeah. But they're partnering up with Temporium, and Temporium is actually going to be handling broadcasting these games in the future.
Good.
So finding them and keeping up with like who wins and what's
Do we know when the
on.
next one's going to be? Is there anything on the schedule?
The hardest thing about these tournaments is because there's so many people involved in every
players
one
have
of
to
them.
play.
Yeah, it's the tournament organizers send out messages to the club leaders and say, you're versing this person this week, or you're versing this dojo this week. Talk to the dojo leader and schedule a time that works best for your two dojos.
Sure. So they just kind of organize their own matches. Yeah.
Yeah. By Monday or Tuesday is normally when you know when the match.
I'm just because are they going to do another round or a fresh start of the tournament? Is there any talk of that, or on a new bracket or anything, or you don't?
So it's 6 weeks of competition, and I believe this was our third week.
Okay. So they still got 3 more weeks to go still.
Yeah, and 1 million Pansuns on the line.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Oh, and this week Enigma has a bye, so free win.
Nice.
We'll count it. And I think Ronan.
So if when Enigma wins this, how much of those 1 million Pansums come my way? I wonder.
You got to sign up to defend the dojo.
I don't think that's true. I think for coverage and moral support and repping them out here on TemTalk, I think there's like a mascot fee or something. We'll have to talk to Huron Crane about this later.
Yeah, Huron Crane's the dojo leader. So,
yeah, we'll make some contractual agreements later with him afterwards.
There we go. They were talking about like some strategy and stuff inside the Enigma channel, so I've been like lurking and talking to them. Apparently, don't
be about giving away any of our trade secrets, though.
Well, no, this isn't. This isn't trade secrets. This is money making for everybody else.
Okay, money making tip. Oh, go ahead then.
Apparently, it's common among the pro players to pay other people to TV train their Tims. People have been TV training Tims for some of the other Enigma players for 15K Pansuns to 20K Pansuns to TV train a Tim. Wow. And when you TV train a Tim, you can TV train 2 Tims at a time. And, well, you can TV train 2 at a time easily, 3 at a time if you're good at it. And normally it takes about 2 to 3 hours, like, you know, if you're just playing real passively in the background. So 2 at a time, 20K, 40K times 3 hours. I think that's probably the best.
It's people pay 20K per time. That's the going rate.
Yeah.
Well, it's not bad. So, yeah. You could get 2 of them. I mean, if not, even if per hour calculation, whatever, but it's just something that's different than free Tem Society to make money. Yeah, and like you said, if you can make 40K in 2 to 3 hours,
If you're
10 to
not good at
15K.
ranked, and you can't sell Telemore hacks anymore, and you're not rich enough to invest in Lumas, connect with the competitive community and TV train Tems for people.
Well, if they keep doing fantastic 4-band types of stuff, it'll encourage demand for more Tems to get onto these teams and be TV trained. So if nothing else, it's good for that to churn the market and keep breeders selling Tems and TV trainers training them. So it's nice just to rotate Tems through teams for the economy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, let's move on to our new segment that we wanted to start doing, which is going to kind of be our. I really gotta get a soundboard. That's on the short goal list for production values. We'll do.
Oh no! If you get a soundboard, half of my job disappears.
No, no, you can record all of. It's not going to be like music or sounds. It's just going to be sound clips of you hyping up segments that we just play on a soundboard on demand. You'll get a royalty fee. You'll talk to Huron Crane about funding. No, moving on. So our new idea was to do a game suggestion idea factory kind of area. And I think with this being an early access game, every week on the Reddit, on the Discord, on Twitter, on the forums, you see just suggestions and feedbacks and ideas. And everyone just has an idea for what the game should be or should do. And so having a little area on our show to talk about that, throw out our own ideas or maybe an idea we've seen that we've really liked. It makes a lot of sense as we, wait for new content. What's the best thing to do is to speculate and talk about content we'd like to see that hasn't been announced. So for this week, Kennedy, this is your idea. So you go ahead and introduce it.
Okay. And just giving a little bit more background for my thinking. There, like Andrew said, there's so many things that get suggested and thrown to Crema. They've put out the roadmap. There's so much that they want to design and put into this game, and it's already bigger than everything they imagined it was going to be, which is fantastic. But if you ever browse the feedback section of the forums, there is a tag that they put onto ideas that get suggested that they like, but unfortunately can't fit into their development schedule, and they put it as too expensive. So as far as like it would cost them additional funds to hire like a new developer to bring that on, or outside of their timeline, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, everything I try and suggest for these sections is going to be systems that we've seen Crema either already implement or use, or they've showed they have the coding capability for, and how they can be used in an interesting way to add more content for the community. So my suggestion is weekly community goals. As we have seen Crema put out statistics of like how many Tems have been captured, how many Tems have been released by the community, how many Lumas have been captured, how many, what Tems have been banned, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we know that they have these systems in place to track what the player base is doing en masse. And I think it would be really cool if they could implement that to drive like players wanting to play each week, and set weekly goals for maybe one of those categories each week. Like if the community releases 10,000 or 20,000 Tems this week, then on the weekend it will be a double XP weekend, or it'll be 3 times TV speed, or three times the normal rate of TV training for the weekend. Like if the community is able to do this many free Tems, or if the community does 10,000 rank, that's probably a lot, but if the community does like 5,000 rank battles this week, then on the weekend the Luma rates in Side Park will be doubled or something like that. And I think that would be like really cool and really drive the community to play together, as we are missing a lot of features in this game that pushes people to play together, which is like why people play MMOs, because of the community aspect. And these systems exist, and it could be just a way to give us those extra ties as a community until we get stuff like Club Wars, until we get stuff like our Dojo Wars, until we get clubs and games, and until we get all the other things that would have us playing with each other.
I really appreciate your consideration of trying to make it a practical suggestion. I think that's really smart and rational and a lot more than other people do. People have great, crazy, wild ideas that are out of the box that they want to throw out there. But if it's something that would require a huge investment for a little bit of return, that's difficult for them to implement when they have so much content to program and develop and release. So I think good on you for sure to try to think of something within the systems they have that encourages it. So I think that's really fantastic, and I like this idea. I it's a great idea. We've seen things like this in other games, right? For those familiar with World of Warcraft, and who isn't, there, in the last expansion, there was like the Mage Tower that required community levels of investments for tiers and unlocking, and there was little progress bars.
Mage Tower.
Yeah, and I don't know if and maybe that's not the best example because I think that's
I felt sour emotions when you just said that. I'm just like, God,
I know exactly. That's just it's like on the one hand, I'm almost a little bit like, I like this idea, but I also have some issues with it in sense that that had mixed reviews. My main issue is we already have grind a bunch of free Tems and release them, and I think we already have a lukewarm feeling in the community towards that. And to say, oh, you know how we wanted you to catch 650 Tems by yourself? Well, now we're also going to say, hey, community, catch 200,000 Tems this week to get this. And everyone's going to be like, oh my God, are you kidding us? We got to go. Like, I think it could backfire a little bit, but I think you're on the right path, and I think it's a good idea overall. But I do wonder and question about that. I really like the idea of the rewards that you said. I think even if they don't implement the first half of this, I think they should do weekend specials where they say, okay, this weekend double XP, this weekend ×2, ×3 TV training, ×2 Lumas. Something that says, hey, come play this weekend and do this specific activity. You're going to get great bonuses, and you're going to feel really good about doing the time, and it's going to feel a lot less grindy, and you're going to play as much as possible this weekend. I think that's a great idea. I have seen other games do that. And a little, this is kind of a fringe example, but it's one that in my personal gaming experience I can do. Is there's a game called PlanetSide 2, which very briefly it's this first person shooter kind of like Battlefield, but in an online persistent world. And the point of this anyways is they do double XP weekends. And every time they do that, me and my friends are like, oh, it's double XP weekend. We got to play PlanetSide all weekend. We got to get that XP. And like we get in there and we play and we love it. And we're like, man, this is amazing, getting so much XP. So I can only imagine it would be equally successful in Temtem. And the last thing I wanted to say is I think I like your idea of encouraging the community to do things together more. And I almost have a suggestion to take it a little bit further. Because, yeah, saying, oh, we're all working towards the same goal isn't quite the same as having players play together. So I like the idea of what if they said something like all of these, they said specifically you have to release Tems or knockout Tems in co-op mode. Make the goal specifically around a co-op mode saying, hey, community, release 10,000 Tems while playing co-op, or defeat 10,000 Tems while playing co-op. Because then it's actually saying, hey, go find someone to play with. You guys have to engage. You have to work together, and then get the rewards behind that. I really like that to take it a step further. So it's not just, hey, catch even more Tems and release them, but it's saying, hey, catch Tems together, and then as a community benefit with a reward. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I could even imagine that making PsyPark like actually fun for people again.
Oh yeah, maybe, yeah, because it could be that specific. Do play co-op in PsyPark, right?
Yeah, because PsyPark has like level 40 Tems in it regularly each week. And just, co-oping with the player to knock out all of the PsyPark Tems as quickly as you can. And then, like a Luma rate of just like, oh, let's not kill this one. And, whoever gets it, I don't know, maybe that's the way to end friendships.
I think, yeah, if you're going to do co-op Luna-based things, I 100% think, well, I don't know. I was going to say, I 100% think you have to do that. If you catch one Luma, you both get the Luma. But I don't know if that's just going to, that's probably just going to result in everyone having
at that point you blue shell your opponent's Tems.
What's that?
You blue shell your opponent's Tems.
Oh, is that a Mario Kart reference?
Yeah, you just turn around, you nuke. Because if you play co-op, if your opponent doesn't have any Tems on the field, they can't take a turn and they can't throw Tem cards.
No, so, I think if you catch a Luma in a co-op, you both get a Luma. But the only thing is, then it would just be, I feel like every solo player would be like, oh, you're just telling me I have to buy a second account and run 2 accounts. I get twice as many Lumas. So I don't think it's actually a great solution, but you are right. It's a little awkward if you're doing anything co-op and a Luma appears. I don't know how to do that, but I like the idea. I really like the idea of just saying, hey, you get 3 times TV training. So you feel like, oh, I have to TV train as many Temtems as possible this weekend, otherwise I'm like losing out on this value. Or just I think with the mixed feelings towards Lumas, having just a double Luma rate for the weekend would make people feel a little better about Luma hunting for the weekend, especially if it stacks on top of a rate in a Sci Park as well. So people can hunt any Luma they want, or get at 2 times, or like times 6 for something, whatever's in Sci Park that weekend. Would be interesting.
Yeah. All right. So the goal of this section is to come up with an idea we think is cool and then post it on the feedback suggestion area of the forums. So I think, Andrew, we're both in agreement that this is a cool idea. Mm-hmm. After this episode is posted, I will make a post on the feedback section, and anybody who's listening can go and add their 2 cents to it.
Yeah. And I just want to reinforce that suggestion part of their forums. I saw a Reddit reply from the community manager directing players to this, saying that the developers are looking for feedback and making choices on what they can and can't implement, like you said, and that this is the area that they check regularly. So if you really want to make an honest suggestion and effort and contribution, go to their forums. Don't just post it on Reddit. Everyone wants to just kind of throw it around and say, hey, this is my idea, go do it. Mm-hmm. If you're really serious about it, go find their forums and do it in the suggestion area there. All right, so unless you have anything else on that, which if you can, you go ahead, but we're going to move along otherwise to what we've been up to this week. I don't have a lot of exciting stuff to report, but you do, good sir, and I'm very curious to hear about this first one in detail, so go ahead.
Oh, man, this has been a week and a half for me playing Temtem. I live streamed for the first time on Tuesday. So since we did that spotlight episode last week where we were looking for more engagement with like the Twitch and streaming and content creator side of Temtem, I found a lot of content creators and streamers who I enjoy watching, and I've been watching a lot of Temtem live streaming on Twitch. And there's a morning ritual that I've kind of gotten into as I'm like cooking breakfast, eating, and waiting for my job to start.
I gotta pause with an irrelevant question. What do you make for breakfast usually?
It's a mix between, most of the time, bagels, because bagels are super easy. But okay, this last week, I actually cooked multiple times pancakes with ginger and cinnamon and a little bit of vanilla extract in them.
Look at you, ginger in a pancake.
So
ginger
good.
In a pancake, is that a thing? See, I don't like ginger, so
it's got a good bite. It's got a good bite.
All right. So I get on with the Temtem talk, but I had to know.
One of the content creators of my morning ritual was not streaming one day, and then I was like, okay, no biggie. I'll just watch Karth. Karth is a very big Temtem live streamer on Twitch, and Karth was like just derping around. I forgot like what Karth was doing. I was like, I don't want to watch this, and I live stream myself on YouTube, and I was like, how hard is it to just set up a stream for Twitch? And I was like, oh cool, it's not that difficult. And I actually just was like, well, if no live streams are on that I want to watch, I will just live stream myself for an hour. And I started up Twitch. A couple people who know me from Temporium and other Discords that I am in saw that I was live streaming, and they all hopped in, and we just chit-chatted for about an hour and a half while I Luma hunted. No, I didn't Luma hunt. For the first part of the week, I actually played through the story on my second account, trying to get that closer so I can Luma hunt on 2 accounts. And we just chit-chatted and had a really good time this week. And that was a lot of fun. And then later in the week, I began Luma hunting on my main account, and I haven't actually touched my second account, trying to get this cancerous FOMU, because FOMU is...
I love that you said in the show notes, Luma hunting for cancer FOMU.
Well, so FOMU this week in Sci Park has the chance to have Lullaby on it, and this is the only way to get Lullaby, because there's no Tims that can breed with it that learn it currently. And if you know what FOMU does in the tournament scene, in the competitive scene as is, it's Whiplump, Fomu evolves into Whiplump, and Whiplump does a lot of special damage, but even more so, Whiplump has a lot of freeze pressure that it can put out, where it can constantly...
Can I pause you right here and interject here that I got totally caught off surprise by Whiplump in one of my ranked matches recently. I didn't know that I didn't know what you're about to talk about and what you're describing. I didn't know Whiplump was a competitive Tem at all. And so someone had it in their lineup. I definitely didn't ban it because I was like, whatever, Whiplump. Sure. Are you going to catch my Temtems and try to release them? What are you doing here? So I let him pick it. I didn't pick any of my Tems to try to counter it or any considerations for it. They started with it. And I started with Gaialis, and I was like, all right, sweet. Gaialis has no threat here. Let me just heat up and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, cold breeze. Oh, I'm cold. Okay. And like the gears were slowly turning, but not quick enough in my head. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Still don't care. Let me throw out an attack with this Gaialis. I'll start cleaning up the field here. And like, whatever I attacked survived. And then all of a sudden he hit me with another cold move and froze my Gaialis. I was like, wait a second. This isn't good. And it was too late by then. I couldn't come back, and I ended up losing that match. So it's a good strategy.
Yeah, Whiplump has, once it gets rolling, it only needs one turn, and then every turn Whiplump will threaten to freeze one Tem, which forces you to constantly have to switch out to stop your Tems from freezing, which you just lose so much tempo trying to not be frozen by a Whiplump. Even more so, Whiplump with Lullaby will freeze on one turn, and then Lullaby is a hold turn, and the next turn it'll put your team to sleep.
Oh,
and
God.
then
so
the turn after that,
stalling out left and right. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Exactly. It is the potential for a lot of cancer. Anyways, I wanted one. I wanted it. So I went and I Luma hunted this week. I didn't go crazy for it. I probably only spent about 7 to 8 hours Luma hunting.
Rookie numbers. No wonder you don't have a Luma yet. That's not
how
you get a Luma.
I was not going to just dump like 30 hours into this trying to get this FOMU because I'm not even good with using Whiplump. So I feel like everybody has their signature Tims with like how their brain functions.
Yes,
and,
definitely.
Crowd control is not my thing. I'm more of like I try and push people into like a checkmate type situation.
Sure. I just try to hit them really hard and kill them quick before too much strategy can develop.
Yeah, exactly. And so I wanted it just to have on my roster someday if I ever want to run that strategy. But I've been watching a lot of Arkham Knight too, and he's breeding up Lullaby FOMUs to give out to the community. Highly suggest watching Arkham Knight. If you don't know who he is, just search him on Twitch. And he's one of the daily people I watch. About every other day, he plays competitive battles. He breeds up hundreds of Temtem, and he just gives them away.
What is this? Do you have a sponsorship deal with him I don't know about? You need to come in on this. I think he owes us money now.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, he's actually sponsored this message for 20,000 Panson. No, I'm kidding.
Cheap, yeah, sir. Our ad space is worth far more than that.
Yeah. But yeah, so I Luma hunted this week. Cool. I free Tem'd a little bit. I played through the story. It was just generally a very casual.
I'm glad you played through the story because it'll be fresh for you for our main topic here that we're approaching. So with that said, let's keep approaching it by moving on to Tem of the Week. And due to it being the free, just being a PvE themed episode and PvE tips, we thought we would talk about the king of PvE and the storyline for our Tem of the Week, and that is Gazuma. So Brandon, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Yeah, Gazuma. Gazuma is the 114th Tem in the Tempedia. Gazuma's got a crazy good typing, a lightning and wind typing. It evolves from Genki, who you can catch on the first island.
Yeah, very quickly can you catch Genki.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you catch Genki, I think, just getting past Breca Del Mar or whatever. So it will be with you for a long, 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 long time.
I think I tell any of my friends that are starting out playing the game, I say, do you want like the natural exploratory process where you figure out what's good and what to do? Or do you want a little helping tip? Because I got a single tip that I can give you that's going to make your life way easier. And if they say they want that tip and information, I say catch a Genki and keep a Genki on your team, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, I completely agree. and I'm not going to go into the appearance for Kazuma. I'll describe it with my own words. It's got like these two almost ram-like lightning horns on it, or almost like the Hercules beetle type horns on its head with a little fuzzy hair. It is yellow and black, and it is a cute monster of death. The personality for Kazuma is even in the wild. Younger Genki seem to instinctively respect them as their elders. In the hills of Iwaba, one can often spot Kazuma leading small flocks of Genki, a clear indication of their status among electric Tems.
I love this little bit of lore because because there's no like Pokemon show behind Temtem, we don't have quite the same world building. And I think it's one of the big weaknesses of this game is that lack of nostalgia for players. And it's great to have these glimpses into what that world building may look like with something like this, because I like the idea of seeing a flock of Genki, you know, that these aren't just one little Temtem sitting around in glass or in tall grass. In the real world, we would see flocks and flocks of these Genkis. So I think that's really cool. So we got something exciting just joining us in the middle of our Tem of the Week segment. Is we were planning on doing this show with a special guest host, Blue Sapphire. And due to some scheduling and technical difficulties, he's joining us a little bit late, but he's just jumping in right now. So we're going to pause our Tem of the Week and introduce Blue Sapphire. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing awesome, my man. Glad to have me, and a little late, but hopefully not too late. So yeah.
Well, you know what they say, better late than never. So for those that don't know, and correct me if I get into this wrong, but for those that don't know, you are big into speedrunning, Temtem, and that's why we were having you on this week. We're kind of doing a PvE focused show and tips for PvE, and speedrunning is right up that alley. And last week we talked about Nuzlocke, so it's a great turn of the event. So yeah, so just real briefly before we get to our main topic and dive deep, tell us about speedrunning.
Yeah, I mean, speedrunning in terms of Temtem is actually quite interesting because, in a sense, right, usually in speedrunning you'll have access to glitches and otherwise, but of course, for Temtem, most of those glitches are unavailable to us because, well, you get banned. So essentially, to just paraphrase, we essentially just sort of cut out everything unnecessary as much as possible in Temtem, and because there is no RNG in Temtem in terms of combat, there is a absolute value of amount of encounters you have to face exactly to get the fastest time. So yeah, I mean,
sure,
we can get more into that later, but that's basically it.
We definitely will. So we're talking about Genki and Kazuma right now as our featured Tem of the Week. Is that a Tem that you use in your speedruns?
Yes, actually, it's one of the core components of the speed run.
I bet.
Funnily enough, yes, exactly. It gets rid of all mental Tem very easily, paired with a crest style or otherwise, and is literally good on all three islands. So it's by far the best Tem to speed run with. So it's awesome. It's an awesome Tem for PvE.
I don't know. So Brandon, I know we interrupted your train of thought. What else? I think you still got to talk about the moves with Kazuma, or where do you want to pick up?
Oh yeah. Before we jump into the moves, I want to talk about Kazuma's traits. The traits it gets currently in game are receptive as its main trait and fast charge as its secondary trait. It currently, right now, receptive is, I say, the quote unquote good trait, and fast charge is the one that's kind of useless because we don't have digital Tims. I want to pause real quick before I go through the rest of Genki, because Blue and I actually talked about this earlier this week about Genki's other trait, fast charge, which is whenever a digital ally enters the battlefield with Genki, that Genki gains Kazuma gains 2 stages of speed. I think fast charge is a really, really, really cool design trait that Genki or Kazuma has, as far as it functions on swap-ins, but it functions on swap-ins based on another Tim. So there are things in game like Protector and Demoralize that function on swap-in and do huge effects, but those traits encourage a specific type of team, whereas when we get more digital Tims inside of the game, we'll really have with Genki's or Gazuma's fast charge, we'll really have to think about team building in a whole different way, which we can probably get into that in a whole nother episode of just like focusing on team building.
There's no way to get fast charge right now. There's no digital template.
No, there is,
right?
Yeah,
is
no
there any
digital
NPCs that use a Gazuma with fast charge and activate its effect?
I think the only Blue, you can give more insight on this, but I'm pretty sure the only digital Tim is
Max's, right? Does he use a Gazuma? I don't remember.
Yep. So the only two digital Tem that you encounter in the game is Zalbian on Max and the Zalbian on the Professor you fight at the volcano. In terms of Gazuma with turbocharge, I don't believe there's enough Gazuma anyway to confirm this for me. I believe you only encounter one Gazuma the entire way through in the Bunyan tree, I believe, if that's what it's called, Great Bunyan Tree.
Sure.
And I unfortunately I kill it too fast. So as far as I remember, it is in fact it's probably I think it is turbocharged. But again, you can't really confirm unless it pops up because I've never seen it use the other traits, so I'm kind of just assuming it is turbocharged.
Yeah, well, it's something for us to look forward to being able to do ourselves as players once we get some digital Tems. So
yeah, getting into Gazuma's stats and its typing. It has really great special attack, and it's got really amazing special defense. So Gazuma can come out to the field, likely if you throw it in into a good type matchup, it's likely going to get one free turn to either Sparks itself or Tesla Coil another Tem, and then on its turn 2, it can Turbo Choreography or it can Electric Storm and just throw out crazy amounts of damage or add like crazy amounts of support to your team. Thanks to its typing, which is Wind and Electric, it takes neutral damage from everything and 1/4 damage from Wind, and it takes double damage from Crystal. So Crystal Tems are pretty much Gazuma's biggest threat in what kind of locks it out of the games.
And what's nice in the story is you're not going to fight any Crystal Tems till pretty late in the storyline. Part of why he's so strong, I think, during the storyline.
Yeah, no crystals until the second part of the Tumka Island.
Right.
And going into Gazuma's moves, the moves that I will say are of note for Gazuma, it learns Turbo Choreography as a course, which is really, really great. It learns Tesla Prison from breeding. Tesla Prison is an electric move that lowers the speed of any Tim hit by it, so it can offer some really good speed control between Turbo Choreography and Tesla Prison. A unique move to Electric Tims is Sparks. It's one of the only moves other than Madness buff to increase special attack currently in the game, and Sparks can be used on other Tims. So building your Gazuma defensively and allowing it to Sparks other Tims is a very viable strategy that we don't see a lot of. And Electric Storm is another move that's worthy of note, as it is the highest damaging electric move currently in the game, and it hits the full team.
And the really nice thing about Sparks compared to Madness buff, it doesn't do any damage to you. You don't have to sacrifice the health along with it.
Yes.
So I think that pretty much sums up Gazuma pretty well. I don't know. I mean, Blue, do you got anything else to add to that? Otherwise, we'll keep moving along.
I mean, the other things to add, of course, is in terms of PvE, you can use Chain Lightning as well, pairing it with Pig Epic or a Nesla. Makes it very straightforward. You chain bounce throughout. It's probably the most effective lightning ability in terms of cost efficiency and stuff like that. So again, Gazuma is just overall very solid for clearing the story. And yeah, as you mentioned, Crystal Tems don't appear until later. So you don't really have to worry about that. And you get given a Volcrane anyway, so you just swap that in, and Volcrane should take care of that.
You bring up a very good point, Nesla. I think Nesla gives Gazuma running for its money and good PvE Tems. At least that's how I beat most of the main storyline, was with a Nesla and Chain Lightning, Electric Synthesize, and healing itself every time it hits itself with that. I assume Nesla plays a big role in your speedruns as well, along Gazuma?
The problem with Nesla is the 10% chance to find one. The issue is
Oh,
that
if you're, yeah, I suppose.
yes, absolutely. Genki is guaranteed while Nesla is not, and also the spots for Nesla are very far apart from each other and are not very easy to get to, especially if you're connected and you're supposed to go straight to the airship, right, straight after the dojo. And then straight back to Turquesa. In between that time, you have one opportunity to look for Nesla, and the longer it takes, obviously, the less time you're expending. So, a lot of the time, I simply just sort of, there's just the odds of Nesla being obtained is just too low, and also its breakaway chance, right? Its breakout chance of a card also accounts for how much time I'll waste trying to catch one. So, unfortunately, for speedrunning, it's not the greatest, but for PvE in general, absolutely go for it if you can find one.
Yeah, you're already teaching me something that I don't think about. Just like when we were talking about Nuzlocke, there are so many things I hadn't thought about. But yeah, with speedrunning, it's not just about how good the Temtem is; it's about how quickly you can catch it, I suppose. So that's really interesting to hear about.
Exactly. I did catch a Luma once during a Nuzlocke run, so that was hilarious.
A Luma Nesla or just a Luma in general?
A Luma Saku. So I was walking
Awesome.
around. I lost both my starters. I had
No.
a Paharak and a Scale, and I was about to give up. And then I walked into a bush and I hit a Luma a Kaku. Luma Kaku. Yeah, and I was like, oh, well, that's awkward. And then I just continued playing the speedrun. So I started not the speedrun, but the Nuzlocke. So that was funny. Yeah.
Well, let's cover our last topic before we can get talking about these speedruns, because I really want to dive into them in PvE in general. And so our last little topic before that is just the challenge of the week, or something that we introduced in the past. This week it's pretty simple, but I think it's interesting, and it's on a PvP side of things, so it doesn't fit the rest of this show. But the challenge that I wanted to throw out and have the players think about doing is designing a ranked team where every single Tem on your team shares a type. And so basically having a dojo style team where you have a type team, whether it be all crystal Tems or all water Tems. I think it will be challenging for people to come up with an effective team that they can still win with that. But I think there's also a lot of potential, because there's something for saying to go putting all your eggs in one basket and then doing your bans around that. You know, so if you do all crystal, like the enemy can only bring so many fire Tems, and if you can ban one of them and just have to knock out one of them, then you might be home free. So I'm curious if there's what the best type that people might come up with to do and what kind of approaches they might do with this. I don't know, Kenny, do you have either of you guys have any thoughts on that or suggestions?
I did have questions about this for you, and you answered them. When you said design, because I just read the show notes when I first saw this, and it's a design a ranked team with every Tem sharing a type. I was wondering if you could have like maybe Mushuk that is a toxic and melee Tem, and then you could have another Tem that's, toxic and this, but another Tem that's melee.
Oh,
and
sure.
normal,
No.
like
All
okay.
have a single type that shows up on all type. 8 Tems. Yep.
I think for this kind of pushes you into either going with nature, water, fire, toxic, and crystal. As far as I think those are the only types in the game where you can have
wind
8.
as well.
Oh, wind. Okay, yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's a good number of choices. There was actually a tournament, Plus OP ran one, and a person got to the top 4 in it a couple weeks ago, like maybe a month and a half, I think. Got to the top 4 using a all-water team because there was so much variety in water Tems at the time, and the meta still hadn't completely evolved, and people weren't running double toxic every single time. Most of the time it was just Volarin. And even still, running double toxic, you can ban them out. And they actually got to the top 4 because that was the strategy. Ban the toxic Tems. Bring all the water types.
Right. That's something I think it could be an actual valid strategy, maybe. I mean, we'll see what people come up with.
This is definitely a challenge. So please remember, this is the challenge of the week.
Yeah.
This is not us giving you some brand
This
cool
isn't
new
advice.
strategy.
This is a challenge.
Yeah, 100% right. That's right. It's a challenge.
All right, so I guess I'll try and make my team this week. It will likely be a crystal team, and I'll just press crystal spikes every turn and pray that I win.
Does the base game system prevent you from putting a duplicate Tems on a competitive lineup?
It
Yes.
does.
Okay.
Yeah, you
Okay.
cannot have the same Tim.
Okay.
on
I
a
never
team.
had tried that. I was gonna say if people want to do that, I would let them, but I guess you aren't gonna be able to do that. So
Yeah,
fair
unfortunately.
enough. All right. Well, good luck, Devin. I hope that goes well. So for our main topic this week, it's a combination of just talking about speedrunning with Blue here and also Blue Sapphire. And is it okay to call you Blue, or do you strongly prefer Blue Sapphire? I keep
I
shortening it. I'm
mean,
sorry. I
yeah,
apologize.
no. Blue and Blue Sapphire. I don't mind either way. Blue is actually quite how a lot of people refer to me as, because obviously Blue
Okay.
Sapphire's a bit long. So yeah.
Okay, I'm not the first one to do this to you. Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. But yeah, so it's going to be about speedrunning and PvE in general, PvE tips. We just wanted to do a show about PvE instead of PvP, really, is at the end of the day. Right off the bat, what I want to ask you to get this started is, have you done speedrunning in other games? Do you have a background in this, or is this your first approach to it with Temtem?
So my first approach to speedrunning was trying to get a Tetris 100K no hold, where you
Ooh.
couldn't hold pieces and you had to stack and reach 100,000 points as fast as possible. Obviously, this was unofficial, and this was basically my first attempt at practicing manipulating a software called LiveSplit, which most speedrunners use to record their speedruns. And yeah, it was basically just a warm up for whenever I want to speedrun something else. I do intend to speedrun other games in the future as well, but
Sure.
that was the warm up. And then straight after that, I started planning for my Temtem speedrun.
I was saying, how long ago was this Tetris?
Uh, about a month and a half ago, I think.
Okay,
I
so
would
very,
say.
very
Yeah.
recently. Were you streaming this on Twitch at all, or is this just recorded like you said?
Yeah, yes, it was. It was streamed on Twitch. It is actually much easier to stream it on speedruns on Twitch. That way, you have video evidence,
Sure.
and that is definitely something a lot of speedrunners actually do. Even though they don't really necessarily like streaming or anything like that, they stream for the purposes of recording their runs. So yeah.
That's making me automatically think of my next fascinating question is just what is about the wider speedrunning community? You mentioned how, recording it for the video evidence. What's that kind of like that importance of proof and evidence and bragging rights or official cataloging of records and achievements? I mean, just answer that with whatever direction you can take it in, but I'm curious to learn more about that.
Yeah. Well, speedrunning in general is all about the challenge, right? Speedrunning is what happened when a dude was like, how fast can I beat this before my friend beats it the first time, right?
Yeah.
It's essentially the idea that there is an absolute value of a game can be beaten at the fastest time possible. And of course, a lot of games like Breath of the Wild, I believe someone beat it in 8 hours, 10 hours. So
Jeez.
again, a lot of games can, Breath of the Wild takes weeks for me. So, so essentially, right, you have to, there's a absolute value of how fast you can play a game. And that's what speedrunners try and achieve, is to basically tell people that this is actually how fast a human can physically finish the game as soon as possible. And that's basically what speedrunning is all about, right? Some people do it for bragging rights, of course, just be proud.
Sure.
Some people just do it for a hobby as well. I know a lot of people that I watch as well that do it just simply for hobby, and they actually have like jobs and otherwise. So yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned like how this is once someone says this is the absolute fastest time, there's got to be some counterplay where someone says, no, I think I can do it even faster, or try to find a faster time. That's usually
what happens. Absolutely. That's usually what happens. Of course, there are some games that I believe have been completely maxed out because, of course, they're not updated.
Yeah.
And unless you use a Game Genie, it's not going to get any more broken. So, yeah.
Well, funny you mentioned the Game Genie, because I think of the first time I ever heard about speedrun. I don't know if either of you guys are familiar with this history or not. I can clarify the gaps in my memory, but the original Mario Brothers game on the NES or even in the arcade, I can't remember. But there was something I thought, if I recall, like where if you run and jump and hit a certain block a certain way, you actually like glitch the code, like you said, and it allows you to speed up the game time or jump forward or something. But
right? So that is, I believe that's, I don't know the exact name of that, but I believe it's called infinite momentum or infinite speed glitch.
Yes, yep,
where you frame into the wall and you like crouch jump and you just hear Yahoo, 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 and then eventually you move like a car. Essentially, you just vroom through, and you actually move so fast you skip spaces in the world space to just skip the wall. Like you don't even check if the wall is there; you just go through it. And I think that's how people use that glitch, and it's probably one of the I believe it's one of the hardest glitches known to speedrunning history. Because again, you have to time everything perfectly and also direct a really fast Mario to the right direction. So, and you have to do that twice, I believe, in the same run. So, it's definitely a challenge. And it is quite hilarious to watch when it actually is
I
pulled off.
can imagine.
You just disappear into a black wood and then come back, and suddenly you're straight through Bowser. So
it's really funny that there's and fascinating that a part of speedrun is very skill intensive, like you said, but also a part of it is just about trying to find ways to break these games and stress these games and literally break them. So that's interesting when you talk about transitioning to an online game like Temtem. You have to be careful like that you don't break any terms or conditions or anything to get you in trouble. So it's a fascinating evolution of this progress.
Exactly. I mean, most Pokemon speedruns actually are lacking of glitches just because, well, Pokemon doesn't. You can't really glitch your way through. It's a lot of fundamental movement in Pokemon is already coded in, like hard coded in, unlike Mario where it's a lot of speed and momentum calculations. So in Pokemon, a lot of the time, instead of optimization, they look for good RNG essentially, right? But of course, for Temtem, we don't have that. So our good RNG is obviously initial encounters, but it's for the most part all about what parts of the run, what parts of PvE can we cut off and skip. Like for instance, in speedruns right now, I have officialized that you actually don't need to ever go down into the river after you take care of the Arizona Dojo lady. You can actually beat the Arizona Dojo lady under level. Yeah, as crazy as that sounds,
I'm sure you can. I can't.
But theoretically, yes, you can actually beat her without having to over level or over prepare. I hear a lot of people like, "Oh, she's the hardest dojo master," but essentially, if you have the right pairing, such as a Crystal and a Genki, right, you can actually subdue quite a bit of her team quite instantaneously. The only one you're concerned about is Osiera. Osiera's Ice Shuriken will insta-freeze your temp or or just do a lot of damage. And that's why you bring in a lot of bombs and bomb pluses. You should have the money by that point. Obviously, not everyone wants to spend all their money on bomb and bomb pluses, but if you do want to beat her, it is possible, absolutely, for PvE players. So again, what I recommend is obviously just a Genki or a Nesla, or both at the same time, and then you should be good to go. You don't even have to over level or you can be slightly 1 or 2 levels down, and it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter.
Well, that's actually a great transition point because we wanted to talk about the first dojo in just a general PvE sense for non-speed runners. And I think you've already thrown out the good tips for a non-speed runner on how to beat her. But before we go into that more, I got to ask before I forget, and I got to know up front, what's the fastest speed run of Temtem that you're up to right now? How quickly can someone beat Temtem? How quickly can someone and how quickly can you? I guess that's 2 questions.
Yeah. So how quickly I've gotten it is about 5 hours and 25 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But there's about 25 minutes I can cut off from that, so about 5 hours. Now, I have talked to people and they've claimed that you can beat the game in 3.5 hours. And I would love to see a video of that.
There's no evidence of it. That's not important, that video footage, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of thing I always look for, because obviously you can claim all you want, but those kind of numbers, that's not very.
I'd be interested in how they're beating the game, because that number was given to me too, but that number was given to me in that you have an alt account and your main account was all
you
level
trade
48
it to yourself.
Sims.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
That's a different scenario. I was going to ask about that in your speedruns. Do you do anything like that, or do you do a pure isolated run of the game without outside help?
Yes, no outside interference. That is what any percent is all about. You beat the game at any percent as fast as you can without any outside interference. Trading is not allowed. Obviously, people have said, "Oh, you can beat the game in 3 hours and 30 minutes," as I mentioned. But again, that is without outside help at the moment. I can only get it down to 5 hours. I can still cut a lot of time, but every section of the game has lasted about 20 minutes, which means that so if you look at all the dojos in the game, that's an hour right there. That's an hour and 20 minutes. So you have to think about everything else in between, right? The max encounters, the walking across Tukma. That's a lot of encounters.
Lady Lock, yeah. Well, exactly. That makes sense. That 3.5 hours. That's probably people that are trying to maximize money for it and are just like co-oping with a main account with a bunch of powerful Tems. not
Yeah.
actually speedrunning the game from scratch.
Blue, I watched one of your streams, and I just remember like you were flying through the game, doing so well on one of your speed runs, and you were in Amnesia, the second island.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I'm going to go get dinner. And I came back, and you were in the dojo of Tukma, the crystal toxic one, and you're just screaming as you went around in circles because you got lost in the sliding maze.
I got lost in the maze. Absolutely.
Oh
yeah,
no.
I lost about 10 minutes there, so it was a bit rough, but it was actually ironically slower than my previous time in the maze. So I said previously I could only go up from there, but no, apparently I could continue going down from there. It took me longer to get out of the maze than previously.
I'm so ecstatic to hear that dojo trips up even you, a speedrunner, because I took forever figuring that out, Googling YouTube videos.
I actually set a record in that dojo for the Temtem community. I hold the longest possible time it took to get through that dojo.
Oh wow!
I still don't know to this day if I've gotten all the items out of there that you can get from certain islands if you go on certain paths and whatnot. I was eventually like, I'm done in here. I'm out. I'm leaving. Whatever items that are in here, they can stay in here.
I mean, the best part about it is that I actually did practice inside that dojo for just preparing for the speedrun, and I still have managed to mess it up because it just confused me for a solid 3 or 4 minutes, and I kept hitting the same incorrect position. So I mean, again, it's whatever. Again, I know I can probably get it faster, but besides the point, you can literally finish Temtem in a day. So bottom line there.
Going back to what we were talking about, that first dojo for non-speedrunners, just PvE in general, and it sounds like similar to you, just for players going through the storyline or that first dojo. For Sophia, who's she's the gym is a water and wind type. So like you already said, you basically covered it. I guess I don't have a lot to add, but just to clarify, electricity is your friend. Genki is your friend. Nestle is your friend. I don't know. Do either of you guys have any other advice besides it? Like you said, Oshiera is their highest level Tem and very much higher level than what you probably will have at the time is the big one to look out for. Any other just general thoughts on that before we kind of tie that dojo off our list?
I would say in that dojo too, I don't 100% remember every fight, but I do remember the dojo pretty much assumed you were going to bring a Genki or a Gazuma to the fight to try and win the matchup. And if you lead every fight with your Genki, by the time you get to Sophia, your Genki is going to be very bruised, as a lot of trainers are expecting that. I don't remember if there were neutral types there or what, but I just remember that Gazuma doesn't fly through the start of it. So having a Smazzy or anything that can power up itself, Smazzy gets show off very early, and just stacking a little bit of attack can just help you get through the openings of some of those fights.
If you're not speedrunning, there's nothing wrong with leaving the dojo and healing.
Take your time and healing. Absolutely. I mean,
I would heal full health before any dojo batter against the final dojo leader.
I mean, casual strats is beat one guy, and you're like, okay, good, heal, and then you come back in. I mean, that's not a bad thing to do.
Well, we got the vial helps with that too a lot, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I gotta know, switching right back to speedrunning, what is a strategy between when you can afford to go to Temporium? The management of your vial has got to be a vital decision of when you use it, when you don't, how much you squeeze out. Just tell me about that. What's the deal there?
That's actually really funny because in the entirety of Island 1, I know exactly what it is to an essence vial now, literally by the second. So
wow,
I know,
that's awesome.
This is exactly when I use it. This is when I want to use an apple. Because everything is numerical and the starters always have the same stats, you literally know exactly what's going to happen before straight until you make it to Lady Lottie. So again, there are perfect timings so that usually what you want to try and do is minimize your entrance to the Temporium. There are moments where you have to enter the Temporium for quest reasons, and that's when you fail the 10 essence vial, because then you are saving time there. That's when it's basically the most obvious time they use the 10 essence vial. Another thing to note with the 10 essence vial as well is that you also do it while you're shopping for resources like bombs and bomb pluses, because then you will be able to refill it in time. And well, for the most part, you tend to avoid trying to go back until you've accomplished at least most of the new area you've discovered, especially next to the Temporium or the Temp Station.
I mean, I gotta imagine a lot of it's not about going back, but being able to get through that portion of the game to just get to the next Temporium.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
hit a Temporium, use it, get as far as you can, vial, and try to get to the next Temporium if you can.
Yeah. Like a marathon race, right? You don't want to go back to a previous checkpoint. You want to hit another checkpoint for a break. So it's definitely like exactly like that, in the sense where you don't want to have to go back to a Temporium. Otherwise, you're going to have problems, or not problems, but you're definitely going to be wasting a lot of time, especially running back and forth. Takes like a good 2 or 3 minutes to run back and forth as well. So
are there times right on the side you do have to go back? Do you haven't found a way to avoid that and you have to double back?
Well, we have this little friend called a smoke bomb, so we skip the walking completely. If a run obligates us to go back, we smoke bomb back to the position, and you can actually use a cheeky way. So if you guys don't know this, you can restore your position at a temp station, let's say at Amnesia, or let's say we save we fly to Amnesia, right, and then you walk all the way to the Great Bunyan. If you have not used a temp station before, at any point when you make it to the Great Bunyan, you can smoke bomb straight back to the airship.
Oh yeah, that's really smart. I didn't even think about that. The fact that you might avoid touching it to save your teleportation location. Well, that was going to be my next question. Just, and you already answered it quite a bit. Is just on top of the vial, item management has to be a huge part of this. The bombs and spending and how do you budget your money, because you can only buy so many bombs and smoke bombs. So what is that process like? How do you map that out?
Right. So there are an exact amount of items that you buy at the start of the first island. Of course, the second island is a bit more wonky because you get way more money. So I haven't done the math for that yet. I don't think there is an exact math. I think it's pretty sure it's a bit overkill actually once you make it to the second island, because you have way more money and you actually have no money problems anymore. In terms of item management, there are literally there's a specific amount of smoke bombs I need, and I'm usually on the dot with those smoke bombs. So there's really no need for extra ones. Like each island, I've basically mapped how many smoke bombs I need. I believe in the first island I need 4. In the second island I need 6, and then the final island I need I believe it was 8. But yeah, that's basically the exact amount you need to optimize your way through that with smoke bombs. But yeah,
I'm curious. You're talking about knowing how many you need and what to buy in these set numbers. How much? I know that a lot of this has got to be your own trial and error and discovery, but how much of this is a community and mapped resources online and shared information and plans and tips, or how much of this is just you figuring it all yourself? What kind of community out there is there for saying, hey, this is what I've done for this island and you can do the same, or is that non-existent, or what's that
at the
process
moment there
like?
is at the moment there's not a very strong speedrun community, of course, because the game is not finished. A lot of players have decided to opt out until the game is finished to speedrun the game, because then it would be much more official. But at this point in time, actually, I simply browse the wiki for Easter eggs. So Easter eggs are probably the best way to steal items. If you guys didn't know, in that starter area, there is a hidden bomb next to the boxes you can take. So the first thing I do at the start of the game is take that bomb for free. And you actually do, in fact, use that down the line. So again, these are kind of tips and tricks you do to obtain items that will assist you in the long run. I know every hidden item in the academy when you get to Brical de Mar. We take those as well. So there's a lot of stuff that secret items and otherwise that you actually pick up along the way that are extremely useful.
I can imagine. Let's talk a little bit about, so past the first dojo, for both your speedrun and PvEers, I think if I'm not wrong, guys, and it's been a while, is the next big major fight you have is against Lady Lottie. Is that correct? In the Wind Fort or whatever it's called?
Yes, it is in fact Lady Lottie in the Wind Fort.
So I mean, I'll let you lead, Blue. What's your strategy for getting through that fight? Because that's a tough fight in the story. You have to fight all of her lackeys, and then it transitions through dialogue straight into a fight with her. There's no chance to heal.
Yeah, I've actually been made naughty about losing a 10 before, I believe, and this is what I call this is quite funny because I make fun of Barchi the entire run, and I mean, I still do because Gazuma one shots Barchi due to the glass cannon nature and the fact that it's Barchi. So essentially, what happened is Barchi shows up and I click chain lightning and Barchi also disappears like a magic act. But anyways, regardless, the strategy is, of course, killing off the Doom enemies as soon as possible. So you want to kill off Hocus and Sparzy ASAP. It doesn't matter if they speed you down or otherwise. Just kill them off and then reset your HPs before you fight Lady Lottie. You can do this. It's a bit cheeky, but you can do this by forcibly waiting until their last time overexerts, and then you heal up, and then you kill it, because you get an entire free turn to heal up and reset. And by the time you make it to Lady Lottie, you'll basically have a fresh team. Stamina resets, of course, so once you get to Lady Lottie, you have a fresh team. And the same logic applies. You kill off the Sparzy and Hocus as soon as possible, and when you are ready, you just laugh as Barchi gets one shot. So,
do you need to completely avoid Doom being cast on you at all? Is that the goal, or just try to avoid it as much as possible, or completely?
So Doom reduces the time of the run because of the fact that the 10 minutes to revive, and also the fact is that if your Genki gets doomed and you make it to Lady Lottie, Genki dies instantly, and you can't 10 minutes violence between them. So that's sort of the main issue, right? Is that if you get doomed, there's nothing you can do about it. There's no you can revive, but you would rather probably not.
Just not have to do it, of course.
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
That brings up a good point. We talked about how Temtem doesn't have RNG, but I don't know. But I would imagine there is that you might not have critical hits and misses. But how consistent is the AI and its choices of Tems and moves based on what you do? If you play the exact same way, do all the dojos and trainers use the same Tems and the same moves in the same order, or can it change run to run?
Well, the thing that changes their logic is the stats on my Tems. If my Tems deal a lot of damage, they focus their AI stance changes. But actually, at the start of the game, like before you make it to I believe Arisola, you can clearly see the AI work, and that's actually how I figured that out. Is that through the first half of my run in the first island, I realized they did the exact same thing at the exact same time at the exact same moment. The only difference was with Paharak using stare or attacking, and I believe it was a 50-50 split between that.
So I'm sorry. So you say they do the same thing, but unless your Tems have higher TVs and SVs and do more or less damage in a previous run than they might do.
Or they have more or less HP. I think HP is a bigger factor actually.
Based on what their natural stats are. So you can get a little variety in run to run based on that. Do you have time to do any TV training? I imagine not.
No, TV trading takes too long. Of course,
I can imagine.
Yeah, normal TV trading takes hours. So in a speedrun, of course, it's
there's no time for that. It's funny how different this is this is like on fun different ways the challenges I'll play the game. Nuzlocke and speedruns are on two opposite sides of the spectrum. One is to be slow and careful and meticulous as possible, and the other is to be as fast as possible. So that's great. I love it. It's so fascinating to talk about these week to weeks back to back. It's really cool. So, Brandon, I don't know, can you think of anything for Lady Lot, for someone's not speedrunning tips besides, again, keep using those electric types that we keep stressing?
Yeah, I think just in general with these fights, taking measured approaches, like you said, I told Andrew at the start of this episode of just like, hey, this is out of my wheelhouse. That's why I've been so quiet. Because I'm not a speedrunner. I hold the record for the slowest playthrough of Temtem. But I think taking those measured approaches that people really don't appreciate in Temtem, that your stat changes last through swaps. So my Lord and Savior of the game in the early game is Kazuma with Sparks, but just as much as I use Kazuma, I also really depended on my Smazzy, where I would basically try and get a couple stages of attack, save the Smazzy for later, throw in some Tims to, get through the early things, and then bring in the Smazzy and uppercut everything to death of just taking advantage of the ability of stat changes to stick. And I don't know how viable that is with speedrunning, but in PvE, it can definitely help you clear some of those fights. Because I know at one point there is a max fight where if you lose the max fight, the game just continues going. And one of the things that really helped me there was taking advantage of the ability to increase my defenses, increase my attack, and just bombing my Temtem into
nobody wants to lose the max.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, well, I might not be going through this the fastest, but I will kill all of your Tims.
Absolutely.
Well, that's a funny point, because I played totally differently, where I didn't think about stat changes in the main story or PvE. I was like, stat changes, that's for PvP battles. Like, I don't need that for PvE. But that's a really good point, and it totally shows that there's different ways to play the game. Is that taking advantage of stat raises for fights is probably a great general tip. And by the way, I got to apologize. There's chainsawing going outside my window. I don't know if any of it's coming through the recording or not yet, but it's getting louder and louder. But we'll just keep going, and hopefully it's not coming through.
Are you okay? Do you need us to call for help?
No. I mean, just slowly
approaches your room.
I can't see out the window, so maybe they're just slowly coming up my wall. But no, I think they're doing some trees or something. So we'll keep going. I'll try to keep myself muted when I'm not talking. But so, Liz, before I ask my next question of Blue, I've been kind of dominating the question. Brandon, do you have any question for him about speedrunning? But otherwise, I'll keep going with mine. But I want to give you an opportunity to.
I don't. I've tuned into quite a few of Blue Sapphire streams. I will say I told you I developed like a daily ritual. In the morning, I get up and I watch these streamers while I do stuff. In the evening, I watch these. Blue was a part of like my nightly ritual of just like, I'll just turn on Blue Sapphire in the background as I get ready for bed. And I tuned into a couple of his streams, so I picked up a lot of like the tips and stuff he's talking about.
And,
just
and you blink, and he's on a different dojo in between
your
eyes closed and open.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Blue. I know, sorry if I cut you off.
No, sorry. There was not. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, speaking of dojos in the next dojo, let's just talk about the next island. So let's say we moved past that first island. We're on the second island. We got the Fire and Nature dojo. We got the Water, Wind, Fire and Nature dojo. The Banu, the volcano. I mean, I'll just leave it open-ended. What do we want to talk about in all of this?
I just want to summarize. The Mokopuni Dojo is the hardest dojo to fight in a speedrun because it's the only dojo that being underleveled is the biggest struggle in history. And this is because you cannot use Crystal in this. You can't you can't use your sword if otherwise. But the reason why I pick Crystal is because Crystal obliterates the first island. He just sweeps through it like a truck. Beep beep. Right. So again, the Crystal is the best one for the first island, but then suddenly you get to the second island, like, oh no, the first dojo is a fire nature type dojo, and if I put Townophobia Genki just dies. So again, the way to deal with that, at least the way I've implemented it, is you hunt for an Amishi in the spot where Nesla and Amishi spawn, and in that spot you either get a Nesla, which is fantastic, or an Amishi, which is also fantastic, because Amishi will of course obliterate all of the fire temps, and you can teach Genki Noxious Bomb. You put Noxious Bomb on Genki, and he will deal with the nature temps for you. And I tested this quite a bit, depending on your attack SVs, of course. It will do enough damage to at least compensate for, again, the lack of an actual way to deal with the nature temps. And I think that's quite cool, right? Because you have no access to fire temps until much later into the game. So, again, Mokopuni Dojo is probably one of the most annoying dojos to deal with, especially if you're new. Of course, if you have a Crystal, I do highly recommend to switch into a water tem like a Nesla or a Umishi. I mean, even Nesla is not very safe in that dojo because I believe he has a tem that has electric synthesis and synthesize. So you have to be careful with how you use lightning as well. So again, it's just quite interesting dojo. The second island is probably the most obnoxious when it comes to their dojos. I believe my last run, I actually lost to Naga, and that cost me about.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, 5 to 8 minutes.
When
And
something like that happens, do you restart your speed line or do you keep going just to see how you can finish?
Well, it's because I already saved about 45 minutes in that run. Losing 8 minutes was just sucked, but that still meant I had 37 minutes saved. So resetting at that point was just suck in general, right? So if you have a time that's already faster than your previous, there's no point in resetting because obviously you can try again to then get even faster and get that perfected down. So again, yeah, like it's really depends on how far in you are in the run. Obviously, if you mess up in the initial start of the game, you accidentally release your 2i or something. Obviously, you reset. So further in, it's all about just
that sounds like something I would do.
Other
So
yes,
is there on top? No, go ahead. You go, Brandon.
On the Mokapuni dojo, it's just some things I want to add on around it. This is one of those dojos too that is a little bit like the Tukma dojo, where there is a whole nother level of like technical skill that comes in and just controlling your character, playing Frogger across the platforms. I know personally, it took me about 4 to 5 minutes, literally just to Frogger to the gym leader because I ran out to heal. And I just had a sucky time getting back there. But I read on the forums that actually people with physical disabilities in their hands, that this dojo is incredibly difficult for them with the timing for anybody with like a neural disability or a physical disability of timing those platforms because of how quick some of the final ones can move. And there is plans for Temtem in the future, in the development roadmap, for you to be able to control your character completely with just a mouse, to play the whole game with just a mouse rather than having to use 2 hands with WASD. So I would be interested with this dojo too, and how much time that might shave off, and potentially, a minute or so of being able to click and move past like that area without, having to have the pro gamer 360 no scope MLG Frogger hopping log plays.
That would be great. I could walk around and also check my phone at the same time in a speedrun because there's a lot of walking, so it would shave off a lot of time as well, just optimizing routes.
What is there a certain time that you are a fastest possible absolute time you think that you can achieve based on what you've seen someone else do or your own calculations, your own play? What's the magic number right now? Or do you think that you haven't figured it out yet?
So there is a point at the start, getting to Brical de Mar. I believe my time on that, I can actually check, but I think my time on that is 13 minutes. And I think the absolute best time for that is about 12 minutes and 58 seconds, just because that's as fast as I think you can get it, because you have to first pick up an encounter along the way, and then you have to catch a Tem as well. Not a catch a Tem, but you have to go through all of the encounters, right? And there's only so fast you can go through encounters, especially when you're the exact same level as there. It takes at least 1 or 2 shots to kill them. And, of course, the stats are always locked for your start attempt. So there is absolutely a maximum amount of time to finish the Brical de Mar section. And I'm checking now. It's actually 16 minutes and 36 seconds. So my fastest time at least. So I really do think the fastest you can go there, like fastest as possible, is 16 minutes and 30 seconds if you don't want to waste time for the next section of the game. Because to get the Temenes's Vial, you need to catch a Tem. But to get through the entirety of that first section, you don't have to catch a Tem at all. So you are kind of obligated to catch the first Tem you encounter just for the sake of progressing.
So I didn't hear what do you think the total number is though? The big hairy goal of a time.
For the maximum total, right?
Yeah.
I think theoretically, I think it can get to 4 hours and 30 minutes, but that's only because of what people have been claiming. I don't want to say 5 hours because then people will say, "Oh, I've beat it in 4.5," right? So I think for the moment, so as people have claimed that they can do it in 4 hours, I think it will be beaten in 4 hours and 30 minutes fastest time. I think my time is definitely not as fast. Obviously, I lost to Nanga, so there is time to be shaved from my highest record. So again, there's a lot of opportunities to be had. I think it can still definitely get lower. So absolutely.
And you said Crystal sounds like your starter Tem. It sounds like, is that because the first island, like you've said, or is there other considerations that we haven't talked about for going with Crystal?
The other considerations I did was I did actually do like a little bit of a spreadsheet chart, right? So essentially I weighed their value on all islands. Smazy's value on the first island is -2, and you may wonder, why is -2? Well, there are mental Tems everywhere. There are mental Tems everywhere on that island, and Smazy is completely useless. And not because it can't do damage, but ×2 damage is just so devastating. And the AI knows what Tems are weak against, so they actually focus the Smazy quite a bit, and they just kill it off. And in a speedrun, of course, you can't afford losing Tems because they're not strong enough to do so. So again, like Smazy for the first island is not very good. Obviously, the argument is, oh, but the third island, he just smashes through it. And yes, that's true, but then you have to account for the non-crystal Tems on that island as well, right? On surface area, the surface does not have crystal Tems. It's only underground. So again, Smazy's value on Tukma is, I would put it at like a 1. And then on the second island, it's a 0 because he has no weaknesses nor strengths, so a net 0. So if you weighed that options, Smazy's a -1. And for Hochik, I don't want to weigh.
Can I jump in and interrupt you, Blue? I have a question on, and this brought up another very interesting thought that we haven't really covered. What type of community or respect would there be given to a speed run through co-op? Because that is one option we have.
Yes, that is another. That is in fact a category. I just haven't seen anyone play that category. Like I definitely think that is possible. So that down the line, maybe 2 people want to play it. So yeah.
I know personally for myself, I picked Smazy as my starter, and I did feel that on the first island of just like the negative impact of Smazy, but I played through the storyline with my partner, and she picked Hochik for the story, and Hochik just had like such an amazing time through that first island and suffering through the rest of the game, but it powered us through the first island, and then between the Tims I caught and then the Smazy getting to the second island, like the Smazy actually carried our playthrough from the second island onwards to the rest of the game.
Yeah. Of course, there's nothing wrong with picking up Smazy or Hochik. Like, I'm not saying they're bad starters. You can pick them up. If they look cool to you, they look good to you. I mean, in my first playthrough, Crystal was flatly cool to me as well. But it just fundamentally, like, if I put them in a speedrun value, if the chance of Hochik or Smazy dying along the way is just way higher than Crystal. And the bonus with the starters anyway is that you swap them out on the third island. If contrary to belief, you actually swap out your starter if it's a Hochik or a Crystal for a Valash down the line for the final dojo, because the Valash is just higher level than everything else, and of course it's a Valash. So
Crystal spikes.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, down the line, just to summarize it, back to my thought, Hochik is a net 0, I believe, if I remember, and then Crystal is a net 1. So yeah, there's a bit of a difference there. They're very small differences, but in a speed run, you want absolute values, and if the absolute value tells you that Smazy will get one shot in the first island, you listen to it.
Well, so let's expand from that from the rest of the team. How many Tems are you using through the game? Do you have a full 6 Tems? You mentioned that one switch out happening. I mean, pick anywhere in the game, but what's your lineup look like? How many Tems are you using? How many switches are you making?
Yeah, I use 4 Tems. One of them I don't even use to fight. Literally you only need 4 Tems to beat the game. I use a Pig Epic to die. That's
for the fainted curse.
Yes, exactly. I use it as a damage bomb. That is all it is. It is a damage bomb. So whenever there's an OCR, in the first dojo, I swap it in so that when the OCR kills it, the OCR tanks overexertion and also the fainted curse. Because OCR's AI actually doesn't understand the risk of overexertion. It actually is because OCR's base stamina is low. When it tsunamis, it actually takes I believe 25 damage by itself. So it cuts itself down to low HP, and then the fainting curse finishes it off. So again, it's just Fated Curse Pig is it's basically the equivalent of dealing a damage nuke, if I'm being honest.
Fated Curse, so good. Now, Andrew,
Yeah.
I know we're watching our time, but could I expand this conversation a little bit more?
Of course. Yeah. We are going a little long time, but I think it's a great conversation. So we'll go
Okay,
a
cool.
little longer than usual today.
A little longer than usual. That should be the TemTalk motto.
Yeah, that's most usually
basically
the case,
every
isn't
episode.
it?
So I know the other half of our episode is PvE tips, and something that I think is worth mentioning for anybody like a little bit newer coming to the game is the current state of the game. That Temtem is a game that's not finished. It's worth mentioning every episode, and new features are going to be added to it, new islands and stuff. But currently in game, there is no way to get Ho-Chick or Smazzy, which means there's a limited amount of just Smazzy and Ho-Chick fertility out there if you're not resetting your game. So as far as like PvE tips, there is something economically to be said about picking Ho-Chick or Smazzy too, because selling off the the fertility of those Tims. I believe I saw somebody on Cardstream last week or the week before last give him a nearly perfect Smazzy. It was missing like one SV. And that alone was worth like $1 million Pansun because of how hard it is to breed it to that point. With the limited fertility available for those.
Well, that's a great point. And beyond the economic, I think if you're someone that's interested in completing the living Tem decks, Tempedia, you just keep in mind that Crystal's one that you can catch, so don't worry about getting it. If you pick Smazzy or Hoochie, that's one less Tem you have to trade for to complete your Tempedia. I know that was a big consideration for me personally. Is I did some Googling and I saw you could catch Crystal and you couldn't catch the other two. So I'm like, I'm not going to pick Crystal. I'll pick one of the other two that you can't get otherwise right now.
Yeah, in general too, I would say that Temtem is just a really hard game, and your choice of starter should really reflect kind of like what you're trying to get out of the game. And I think, like Blue said, Crystal just really, really helps you with the entry into Temtem with like how difficult the game is. Because if it's your first time playing through the story and you're coming here for tips, you are going to be dragging your Temtem's corpses through these
if I had to rename the starters to difficulty settings, Crystal would be normal. Ho-Chick would be hard, and then Smazzy would be the God of War difficulty.
I love it.
Absolutely.
I will say one thing. I'm always an advocate for do what you like and have fun. So by all means, don't feel bad picking the starter that you like when you're not trying to be a speedrunner. You can beat the game with any of the starters. So do pick the one you like. But if you're curious about these other factors, this is the information to keep in mind.
Yeah, exactly. If you like how Smazzy looks, feel free, man. I mean, it's awesome. It's an awesome Tem. It's a monkey that punches you in the face. I mean, that happens in real life too. So it's quite a strong monkey. So there's a tier 3 starter. I mean, I personally, again, I love dinosaurs, and Crystal was the one for me, so I picked that up. And obviously people like Ho-Chick because she floats. It's also adorable. I can agree with that. Right. It's very adorable, and it's very badass when you metamorph. She slowly goes Super Saiyan. I think it's gonna have very long flowing hair down the line. But
I can't wait to see that third evolution. Ho-Chi's who I started with because Mental is one of my favorite types. So we're definitely we're not gonna have time to do our other half of the PvE tips, which is okay. We can save that for the future as the game develops. But with the time that's left, I kind of want to just finish talking about the speedrun progress through the game. Let's talk about that third island and your final fight against Lady Lottie and the last dojo. Tell us about that part of the game for you, Blue, and your considerations and what you're worried about or what your strategy is.
Yeah. So the second fight with Lady Lottie is actually quite similar to the first one, where you'll fight grunts and then you cannot heal. You actually can't heal before you fight Lady Lottie. There's no time station on the ship. So if you lose to the first set of grunts, you're actually sent straight back before you got onto the ship. So just FYI for the players in there. Lady Lottie's fight is just an entire arc of its own. But in that fight, it is the same cut and dry fight, except Lady Lottie has a fire Tem, which means Ukama is much more useful, or Omishi at that point. Omishi is much more useful as well. So that's why I have 4 Tems at most, because then Pig takes the hit, and then I switch in Omishi, and then we go work from there. And Gazuma, I don't believe ever swaps out because Lady Lottie has a Sporzy or a Pocus. Actually, Pocus almost one-shots quite a few Tems because of the laser beam it uses. So
Gamma Burst!
Yeah, there we go, Gamma Burst. So it's quite an interesting fight. Lady Lottie the second is definitely harder
Is
than
it
Lady
called
Lottie
Gamma
the
Burst or is
first.
it Beta Burst?
Beta Burst is the smaller little laser beam, but the Gamma Beast is literally a Kamehameha.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what's kind of scary about it. Of course, Doom is still a big factor. That's why I kill Pocus instantly if I can help it. So again, for that Lady Lottie fight, the second one, I highly recommend sticking with your guns. If you're running a Smazy, of course, switch out to your Omishi and Gazuma instead, or Nesla or Gazuma if you have it. For Ho-Chick, I think you should be fine. And for Crystal, of course, stick it in until a Fire Tem appears on the side of Lady Lottie, in which case you swap out to your Omishi. And that's for the second Lady Lottie fight at least.
Sorry, I had myself muted. A big part of that island is there's another max fight on the C note and the dojo itself. So what about those areas?
All right. So for the final dojo, so I would highly recommend if you had a Crystal or a Ho-Chick to swap out to Valash. Valash is just higher level at that point. Or unless your Ho-Chick is like level 40, of course, keep it. But I tend to swap into Valash because Valash is just a better Crystal Spiker. You pick up Volcrane as well on your roster to deal with those Crystal Temps. There is a Toxolotl, so Gazuma is still extremely useful. And Chain Lightning is actually Electric Storm is quite brutal still, no matter where you are. So in that fight, I highly recommend sticking with a 6 squad of your choice. If you guys don't notice, I don't talk about 2i at all in this. Again, this is because you stop using him after you get your Gazuma or your Genki rather. So again, you just try and stick to your guns. I highly recommend being prepared. There's a Water Crystal Temp in her roster, aka Shuin. So don't be a bit careful when you position your Volcrane because it will get obliterated. Aside from that, my high recommendations is if you have a Smazy, you will win that no matter what. You're gonna actually stomp. You'll curl the dojo straight out of the park. But if you're running a Ho-Chick or a Crystal, highly recommend planning a little bit. Pick up your own Crystal. Madrid would be amazing as well in that dojo. If you still have a Genki, a Gazuma, or a Nesla, they are still extremely effective.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just because I'm furthest along in the story and I'd taken enough time to level, but I think the 4th dojo is the easiest for me personally. But I don't know if that's a reflection of its difficulty level or I just spent so much time training up Tems by then. But it gave me the least amount of challenge, I think, out of the previous 3 dojos. Yeah.
The challenge for the 4th dojo inherently is the inherent difficulty is how under-leveled the rest of my team is. Usually there's only 2 over-leveled Tems on my squad, and you still have to juggle around because, of course, *2 weaknesses don't care about your feelings. So you have to be inherently very careful with that. Aside from that, right, after Quetzal, you will have to fight Max, and I want to get to that a little bit. So in the Max fight, he actually, to my surprise, you don't actually have to overlevel to beat him. He's actually slightly higher level than the dojo, which means that if you beat the dojo, you're pretty much set to go to beat Max as well. If you are prepared. So Max is running a semi team that is actually quite weak to Ukama plus Voloran. Funnily enough, so if you pair Ukama Voloran, you should be solid with that. He runs a Golder, a Barchi. Of course, you just spook it away with a Gazuma. And for the Zalbian, of course, water attacks are pretty decent. Hyperkinetic Strike on the aerobic Voloran will secure that. And Max in general isn't very tough in the sense of difficulty, but rather tough in the sense that you don't expect it. And sometimes that's what makes a Max fight so annoying and difficult is that you don't expect it. The first time I fought Max ever on the airship, 3 of my Tems were dead. So it was also the rest of my team were not full HP. So it was just a struggle bus to not lose to Max. And again,
Right.
that's the biggest factor about Max is you have no idea where he's coming from unless you Google.
That's totally a reflection of the experience. He always pops up when you least want to have a fight with him, including the very first fight with him, where you walk out of the building and you're like, oh, already? Oh God, here we go. Yeah, he's very good about popping when you don't need it. With that said, I mean, let's in closing and summary, last thoughts, Blue Sapphire, or Kennedy, questions you want to get out there. What else do you guys want to put out on this topic, or anything else you want to get in?
As for me, aside from that, like again, just to put a lid on it, right? So for PvE, I highly recommend playing how you want to play. Of course, these are just tips so you don't you're not frustrated through the game. I understand that a lot of people struggle through it. This is again mostly because Pokemon has a bit pampered us a little bit in terms of difficulty. So when you come into Temtem, you're like, oh, the fights are challenging. It's certainly not impossible, right? You can definitely beat everything. I mean, in fact, I'm speedrunning through it, right? So you can definitely beat everything without having to lose any Tems, or rather not lose at all. So again, just keep it on. If you don't like grinding, you don't have to. You absolutely do not have to grind. It's all about your skill throughout the game, and yeah, just final thoughts on that.
Kennedy, what you
Final
got?
thoughts for me on PvE.
Nestla. That's all you gotta say. Nestla.
Yeah,
That's how I beat the game.
that's where I'm at right now. I will say though, this is an MMO. Crema plans on making it, a full release MMO with a ton of features. I don't doubt that there will be a huge PvE community where this whole area is going to grow. So finding cool opportunities now to get well adjusted to PvE, and just focusing on type matchups and really showing yourself that you're a master of type matchups is going to help you out through most of this game. But this area is going to expand, and I don't know, being able to re-challenge these dojo leaders, or what that might look like in the future, would be so incredibly cool that maybe we can revisit this in a couple months' time and have a whole nother list of tips.
Well, we'll definitely have as more islands come out in dojos, we'll be able to talk about that. So we'll definitely revisit the topic, and we definitely would like to have you back on again, Blue. It's been great talking to you. Why don't you let people know a little bit about where they can find you online in your stream, and go ahead and plug yourself.
Yeah, so hello everyone, I'm Blue Sapphire, of course. You can find me at twitch.tv/Blue Sapphire04. I play Temtem. I play a variety of games. I try to be a variety streamer. Of course, if you want to catch me playing Temtem, I most likely will be Luma hunting or other stuff like that. Unfortunately, currently my time schedule does not allow me to speedrun, as projects are all around the corner. But once that is all done, I'll be speedrunning again. So if you want to tune in and suddenly realize I'm in the third island, so just hop in, say hi, and catch me there. I do interact with chat quite a bit, so just let me know. Also, I play a bit of Tetris, so yeah, that'll happen sometimes when I'm Luma hunting. So don't be.
Do you have any set schedule or times for streaming, or just whenever?
Yes, I do. It should be on my Twitch schedule. I try my best to follow suit. Again, my schedule is making it a bit tight, but usually in the evenings I stream. Early mornings, I believe, on Tuesday I stream as well. So again, you can catch me on those times if you are if you're free and you wanna take a look at what I'm doing. I believe only Thursday and Friday I don't stream due to again scheduling.
Well, awesome. Thank you. Definitely go check him out, everyone. And Kennedy, what about you? Where can people find you?
I will jump in and tell you where you can find me, but I do want to spend a little bit extra time plugging Blue, just because such an amazing Temtem content creator. I believe the last couple times I tuned into Plus OP's tournaments on Friday, Blue was commentating them, and he also shoutcasts some tournaments for Temporium occasionally, once in a blue moon. Anyways, you can find me on any social media at PresBKennedy, and I also shoutcast tournaments for Temporium on Saturdays, and you will catch me in the comment section of any stream cheering on the Enigma Dojo as we. Oh, actually, we're not competing in the clan wars, our club wars this week, so you won't catch me there. But yeah, those are the places you can find me.
And the show is on YouTube, so if you're listening to us there, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like our video. You can also find us in podcast formats, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. If you're on iTunes, leave us a review. It helps with visibility of the show. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Until next time.